Hello everyone, my name is Dylan Erickson and this is my presentation video for the flight scenario presentation in Aviation 326 with Professor Willis. This flight scenario, we were told to go over something that we learn, or some kind of procedure that we learn during our commercial for airplanes, whether that be across country, just local, or maneuvers, whatever it might be. And I chose to go over maneuvers because they are a very important thing to know how to do them and how to keep yourself safe, because they're a very strenuous activity where there's not a lot of free time in between different maneuvers, because we're constantly setting up and recovering, and there's a lot going on in a little amount of time. The importance of positive control. It's super important to maintain awareness of what you're doing, staying constant whenever you're doing it. And there's some of these maneuvers that we practice for a private that we did during our private check ride that are now done to a tighter tolerance now that we're going to be commercial pilots. I'm going to use the PAVE model to go over some of the things that we can highlight and pay extra attention to before we even step foot in the airplane, ensuring that we are doing everything we can and need to make sure that we're good to go. All right. As the pilot, the student pilot, there's several things that we got to go over before we even get in the airplane. We want to be very, very familiar with our airplane and the limitations of the aircraft that we're flying. Like I said, some of these maneuvers, like steep turns, are something that we've done before, where before I believe our tolerance was plus or minus 100 feet, and now it's 50, I believe. I have to check the ACS on it, but that's what I think it is. I know. So there's some of these maneuvers that we've done before that are now done to a tighter tolerance. We got to pay extra attention to what we're doing, make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to be doing it. Understanding what goes on during a maneuver, like for example, steep turns, we'll just keep using that one. We turn to our 50 degrees bank, swipe that 2 swipes of back trim. We want to understand why we're doing that. We put that back trim in to relieve the pressure on the elevator. That way we can not be pulling against it, we're not fighting it back and forth the whole time. That just gets us that constant extra horizontal lift, because our horizontal lift is decreased because we are in that bank. So just knowing what's happening and why we do stuff during our maneuvers is very important, just to be able to continue to go. Another key thing before we even step foot in the airplane is chair flying. It's often said and it's often looked at as a joke, but chair flying is honestly a very, very key skill to get used to performing these maneuvers and helping you memorize the checklists, so that we're not constantly glancing down, oh, we gotta do this, oh, we gotta do that. It's a very good tool that we can use to ensure that we do everything how we're supposed to. We're supposed to go, whether it be recovery, setting up, whatever it is. If it's recovery, it's flaps 20, powerful, mixture in, whatever it is. We gotta get used to that. We gotta have quick hands without even looking. Kind of like driving a car. Continued onto the pilot section, where another thing we got to look at is understanding the changes that happen with the airplane. For example, if we were doing stalls, what difference does our airplane have with flaps up or versus down? Our angle of attack changes, our speed, our V speeds change, our VREF, our maximum flaps extended speed. There's a whole lot that changes, and we got to be able to understand what goes on in between each maneuver and knowing what we should do. Another very, very important key point is the difference of having a passenger versus not, whether that be just a co-pilot, some family member you're taking up, or a DPE or instructor. It doesn't matter. Especially, I think the biggest difference I see with this is when we're doing power off 180s, our passenger load is twice as heavy there, maybe 2 of you versus just you going by yourself. We're gonna sink faster. You got to take that to an effect. Another thing to think of is If you're looking side to side whenever we're doing steep turns or any ground reference maneuver, their spot where they're looking out the window is going to be different than yours. So if you say, all right, I'm doing it around that truck in the parking lot, whatever it is, parking lot might not be a great example, but we'll pick, all right, that pond right there, just right off my wing strut. That's not what they're going to see because their vision's looking just a little bit different. They might see a little ahead, a little behind. It doesn't matter, but those are some things that we got to look at. Knowing your aircraft is always important to have certain things memorized, memorization skills. Knowing your limitations and the different flight characteristics of your airplane is super important. Even just as simple as knowing your G loads, what you can handle G-wise. As we know, the 60-degree bank makes our load factor times 2. So a 2,300 pound aircraft now weighs 4,600 pounds. That's very important to know, especially when we're loading with our weight balance. We don't want us to load very, very aft, and then the aft to get even heavier when we're doing steep turns, and all that pushes us down even more. We need to make sure that we have a very balanced airplane and that we know what will affect it with whenever we're setting up for everything. Load factor, weight balance, cover that. Knowing V speeds off the top of our head is very important. Being able to shoot off 65 is approach speed. That's just an easy one off with the 152. Knowing best glide. I think knowing best glide is one of the most important speeds to know, because at any point your engine can go out and you want to be able to get to that best glide as fast as possible. Just V speed is very important to know your aircraft, know what they are, know what you need to be at, and how to get there, whether that be with pitch, power, whatever it is, or how you're setting up. Another thing is the environment. That's the next, that's the V on our PAVE checklist. Knowing your environment, what you're doing, where you're doing it is very important, especially for traffic, safety of people on the ground, knowing how far away you need to be from other people, knowing different traffic patterns around local airports. It's important to stay away from airports. That way you're not going to cause any traffic pattern problems or anyone coming in and out. Make sure that you're in a spot that is communicatable, meaning there's some local airport nearby that's close enough distance to where anyone flying around that area that's not in cruise will be talking to you. Because when doing maneuvers, you're not going from this place to that place talking to center. They got you on flight following, whatever it might be. You are in a certain spot, you're changing pitch, attitude, altitude, heading, and altitude a whole lot. So there's a lot going on. You're staying in a safe spot. You become a hazard yourself. You want to make sure that you stay as little of a hazard as possible by staying away from other people while doing maneuvers. Some of the external pressures that go along with doing maneuvers is the fact that you're operating very, very close to some of the limits of the airplane, whether that be stall speeds, you're banking the aircraft, whatever it is. There's several external pressures that you got to worry about, whether that's the fact that you're flying at a low altitude, the fact that there's traffic around. Something that's important to know is, again, that checklist memorization, because you got to be able to know, all right, if this happens, we've got to do this, then do that in this order. Just in the spur of a moment, if something does happen, being able to identify it and react quickly to it without knowing what you're doing, without looking through a checklist can reduce reaction time, and potentially get you going a lot further, or save that extra distance trying to glide to land with something that's serious. Traffic, quick and fast acting movements. Something that happens with maneuvers is everything goes quick. 50 degrees of bank, that 360 degree turn comes up pretty quick, where you're constantly checking inside, outside, doing your scan. Oh, there's 360 degrees, let's turn to this side. Everything's going quick. There's not a lot of time to mess around. Everything happens fast. If I pull up just a tiny bit, oh, now we're shooting 200 feet. That's obviously an exaggeration, but whatever might happen, there's a lot that can go on in these short amount of time. It's very important. Our learning environment. Our learning environment during our maneuvers, while we're learning maneuvers, there's a lot of things that we can do to ensure that we're constantly learning, not just going out, doing a maneuver, coming back. A lot of that happens with being truthful to what we need to work on. We might go up, do the best steep turn ever, and then we go do 8s on pylons. We pick 2 points that were way off because we didn't go out, we timed our points. We just got to be honest with ourselves and know, all right, this is what I need to do. Ask for help, look it up, go try again. We got to be able to make sure that we're honest with ourselves and what we need to work on better. That way we're not just faking it and potentially trying to make it. That usually doesn't end up working with aviation. Use a co-pilot. If you're going up solo, you can, my friend right here, he can help me with visual cues, with calling speeds, whatever it is, calling call-outs or reading a checklist off, using a pilot to act as a judge, or a pretend DPE, or even a flight instructor can help you out tremendously with reducing workload by itself and helping keeping yourself honest by paying attention to some things that you might not be able to while you're in charge of flying the airplane itself. Understanding that nothing will be perfect on the first try, knowing that you are going to have to do it again and try again. There's no problem with doing it again. Everyone learns. Some might learn at a different pace, but nothing's gonna happen first try. We're always gonna have to try that again. And another key thing is knowing our limits, knowing our minimum safe altitudes, and adding a limit on top of that. Add that buffer. It's never not okay to add a buffer. You always have that buffer for a reason. That way you can react quicker, have more margin for error, and try to avoid it, obviously. But just adding a limit on top of a limit, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's something that you can help you with learning, because we can operate kind of closer in a sense. We could say, let's just, for example, we'll say 3,000 feet's our actual MSA. We cannot go lower than 3,000. So we'll say, all right, we're gonna start a maneuver at 4,000. Our minimum, our MSA, pretend MSA is 3.5. That way we can say, oh, we got to 3.5 pretty quick. Let's work on something to help us keep our altitude. Just that alone gives you that extra margin of safety, because had something gone wrong at our MSA, 3,500 feet, that's an extra 500 feet we can use to recover and go back or glide to something. Another thing to keep in mind is the ACS. Understanding what we're actually going to be tested on for our pilot's license or commercial license whenever we go is important, because we don't want to go into it blind. We don't want to practice something that's not going to be on there. We want to be 100% ready to go for the flight portion of the commercial check ride. A lot of these things are super, not necessarily hard, but strenuous. There's a lot that goes into everything. A lot of setting up, recovering, making sure the airplane's okay, making sure you're able to go do it again and start with a fresh aircraft every time. Personally, when I go out and do maneuvers, I'll take a sheet up with me that has a quick guide to all my minimums and tolerances to each maneuver. And sometimes I like to put a tally next to how many times I do each of those maneuvers. Make sure I'm hitting all those maneuvers and that I'm doing them all within tolerance. And then at the end of the flight, I'll go and I'll rate myself on how I think I did. I'll say, all right, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 5 out of 10. Let's go work on those some more. Another thing that we could do is, I haven't done this in a minute, but set up a camera, a GoPro, just right behind you, just to rewatch how the flight went, and just pay attention to while you're flying, fly the airplane, and you can go back and watch later and say, oh, missed this, I could have been looking here, let's try this again. But you want to make sure that if you do set up a camera, it's within all the regulations. It's not gonna affect the way that you're flying the airplane. It's not in the way. Make sure that it's comfortable and it's not going to affect how you fly. But so those are some of the things that go into a flight with maneuvers. It's important to make sure that you go into it with a plan. We're going to go northwest of the airport by about 10 miles. We're going to know where we are, what we're going to do, and how we're going to do it. These are just some of the things that we got to think about while we're performing these maneuvers, and knowing what we're looking for. And I appreciate y'all watching this video. Again, my name is Dylan, and this is my presentation for the flight scenario in Aviation 326. Thank y'all. Bye. Have a blessed day.